You need to know what questions you should be asking your doctor. Also, what questions they should be asking you.
So we can be very busy. We can have certain times in our life where we're just going, and we're just tired, right? From everything that we're doing. I can rest for a day. I can maybe, go on a little vacation, come back and feel back to normal and recover. The problem with chronic fatigue is that there's no recovery.
Today, we're going to talk about chronic fatigue and what to do about it. I think it's very important, and that's because almost all of us know at least one person who is relying on stimulants just to get by. They drink coffee, they take other stimulants, and while coffee itself may not be such a big of a deal, our inability to generate energy is a big problem. And usually it's not even people's fault because there's an underlying cause. There's something that is the reason behind it that needs to be found, and it also needs to be addressed. And I think that's important for us to talk about this. What could be the underlying cause for chronic fatigue? Another thing is that with this video, we are not trying to cure any disease. We're not trying to give you a disclaimer here. We're not trying to give you advice. We're not going to tell you what to do. We will tell you to consult with your doctor. At the same time, you need to remember when you're consulting with your doctor, you need to know what questions you should be asking your doctor. Also, what questions they should be asking you. We are going to talk about it today. And in that context, I also wanted to let you know, why are we here? What is Polish Your Life? What are we doing? There are many people who go from doctor to doctor. They follow recommendations, and even then, sometimes, many times, they still don't feel better. This is not right. This is very frustrating, and we decided to do something to support. So we formulated a group, Integrative Healthcare Community. We have a doctors networking group, and we are actively searching for the best healthcare providers, resources, solutions, and we're trying to get people, information, resources, technology together to get the best clinical outcomes. If you're up for that, if you would like to support us, follow us on social media at Polish Your Life, subscribe to this YouTube channel, and not because I'm telling you or I'm asking you, subscribe because there will be information and amazing people like our guest today that I really want you to connect with because it can help you or your patients if you're a doctor. So in that context, I'm very excited to introduce to you our guest today. She represents, in my opinion, this is the missing link in healthcare that is between the doctor and the patient. That link is also between the diagnosis and clinical recommendations that we are getting and clinical success. And what lies in between is action. Is implementation. And when there's action and implementation, it's very good to have a good coach. She is a functional health coach. She is a specialist when it comes to chronic fatigue. And she is also your guide to more energy. Jacqui Onoz, welcome to Polish Your Life.
Thank you, Mike. That's an incredible introduction. Thank you so much.
I'm very happy
Excited
that
to be
you're
here.
here. Excited. So let's start very, very strong. We are talking about chronic fatigue. So some people feel tired. All of us feel tired at times. Some people are going to say, hey, I have chronic fatigue. What is chronic fatigue? What's the difference between being tired and at which point I actually have chronic fatigue?
Well, I think when we're tired, you could actually rest and feel better. So we can be very busy. We can have certain times in our life where we're just going, and we're just tired, right? From everything that we're doing. I can rest for a day. I can maybe, go on a little vacation, come back and feel back to normal and recover. The problem with chronic fatigue is that there's no recovery. We are every day feeling like we're just not energized enough to be able to do anything. So in this case, you exude as little energy as you have available to actually function and do what you need to do, like go to work and take care of your kids. But then once that is over, there's nothing left. And that's where the struggle is. And for many, they can't even work or even take care of their kids because they're so exhausted all the time and there's no recovery. There is no vacation. There is no sleeping better. There is nothing that can actually help them to feel better and regain some of that energy. I think that that's the difference between those two.
Yep, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And thank you for
Hmm.
explaining because people can
Hmm.
feel tired often doesn't mean that they have chronic fatigue. Because if as
Right.
long as you can recover, if you have some kind of a system, you go to,
Hmm.
you have a good quality sleep, maybe you have some
Hmm.
kind of a practice, meditation practice, and that gives you more energy, that's good. But when that mechanism of reclaiming our energy, regenerating our energy, if it doesn't work and it's for a prolonged period of time, that becomes chronic fatigue, correct?
Right, correct. And many times it comes along with other things. So now you're it's not just the chronic fatigue, but now you're also having some brain fog where you're having even difficulty thinking and the confusion. And so it's a cluster of symptoms that come together with that chronic inability to recover and regain that energy and clarity.
So why is it?
Mhm.
So for example, brain fog, is it because our our brain needs the same
Mhm.
energy and now we are using
Mhm.
that to move our body or to digest or do other things and right now we are competing for the same energy? Is that the reason why we have brain fog and the brain is not functioning so well or what's behind it?
I think you need to go back into the chronic fatigue part of it, which sort of leads into the brain fog after a certain time period. So if you look at a lot of there's a lot of my clients will come in and they have autoimmune conditions. There's leaky gut involved. There's food sensitivities that are involved. So there's a lot of inflammation. And then that inflammatory response, there is a connection between the gut and the brain. If there's inflammation in the gut, the immune system's activated. Now that inflammation can affect your brain because it's all connected. So one thing actually leads more to the other. So you needed to really focus more on what is causing the inflammation, what is causing that in order to get to being able to resolve the brain fog.
Got it. So it's like I'm seeing
Mhm.
steps. I'm a visual guy, so
Right.
I'm seeing steps.
Yes.
So let's say on one, maybe there is one warning sign, right? So there's one step. Say,
Hmm.
okay, I'm tired. Then people are
Hmm.
chronically tired. That
Hmm.
now they try to fall asleep. Maybe that's also problem sleeping and falling asleep,
Hmm.
staying asleep, good quality sleep. That may be a problem as well. But
Hmm.
let's say the recovery mechanism just doesn't exist, and now it becomes chronic fatigue. Then the next step is other symptoms associated with that,
Correct.
right? So now we have the, like you mentioned, brain fog. So
Hmm.
if somebody's watching this right now and they're like, okay, I think I'm already on that step, step number five, six,
Hmm.
seven, eight, who knows what symptoms they may have. If it's you watching, pay attention. What Jacqui is saying is that we need to go back a few steps back and look at chronic fatigue.
Hmm.
What I would like to ask you is to go even a couple of steps back
Correct.
and to see,
Correct.
okay,
Yeah.
what's causing it, right? So let's talk about a few causes of chronic fatigue in general. I know it can be, very
Mhm.
specific to a specific patient, but the common causes are, what would you say?
Yeah, I mean, we could have a series on the
Okay.
causes, right? But yes, you would have to go back because like it's not okay. Let's focus on the chronic fatigue. Okay, well, if we're looking, for example, at the gut, well, then what's causing that dysregulation there? Then we need to go further, right? Are we not digesting properly? And if we're not digesting properly, okay, let's go further than that, right? What are we eating? Right? What kind of lifestyle? Are we sleeping? Right? What are we consuming? That's where it needs to start. And we need to manage the stress, right? We need to manage the toxicity. We need to start lifestyle behaviors is really where it fundamentally begins. Sleep is so crucial and important with this. And unfortunately, it's like a cycle. We don't feel well, just like you said in the intro. We're drinking so much massive amounts of caffeine just to try to function. But we're not just drinking caffeine, we're drinking super mega lattes that are full of sugar and, syrups that have all these types of funky ingredients in them that we're consuming. And now our body's like, okay, well, what is that? I don't recognize what that is. Immune system starts going, should we react? Should we not react? This is a friend. This is a foe. I don't know. We're just going to watch for a little while, but we keep doing it and we keep doing it because we need the energy. And now our immune system starts going, okay, maybe we need to be careful with who these players are. And we're going to start causing some inflammation here, right? And now it's just like now our sugar becomes dysregulated, and now we have the energy crashes, and now we start eating more, drinking more coffee,
Mm-hmm.
and now we can't sleep because of the amount of caffeine that we're drinking, and we're getting up earlier because we have to get up. So now we have more caffeine, and we're eating even worse. We're just basically soothing our body and trying to energize it as much to what we think we should be energizing it for. But it's just creating more disease. It's just creating more issues down the line. Um, and once it really starts getting into where it starts to affect your metabolism, your cellular metabolism, your energy production, right? Then it starts to get a little bit more complicated. But that's really where we need to back up to what is our role, and what are we doing on our end to continue to aggravate our system, right? Where can we put the pause?
And
And
it's
that can really get you really further up ahead. Like you can really see some changes in you just by making some of those changes. And then you could then further explore, okay, well, I'm, I'm 60, 70% better by making this. What's the other missing part? What am I missing? Is there something more happening in the gut? Right? Is there something, more, am I deficient in certain nutrients that maybe I'm just not getting enough of, that my body needs more support? Is there something at a cellular metabolism level that is not helping me to produce sufficient energy that I'm lacking? So that's where you explore and dig a little deeper. But it needs to start with us. It needs to start with, what do I have in my control to
Mhm.
take action in every day?
And it's easy to tell people, say, okay, now you need to get out that cycle because it's like a vicious circle. It's like, okay, the more you don't sleep, the more caffeine and other stimulants you need, and the more you take them, now you have problems sleeping, and now maybe you have a backlog
Mm-hmm.
of all the things that need to be done, which causes more stress. If you have more
Mm-hmm.
stress, it doesn't really help. Now the metabolism changes and all that stuff. So I wanted to ask you what other. So we went with a few bullet points here, right? So we have, you mentioned our gut, right? We
Mm-hmm.
mentioned digestive health, right? We mentioned sleep, such an important thing because that's our regenerative mechanism. If it doesn't work,
Mm-hmm.
we are in trouble, right? What are some of the other ones that you would list here as the common bullet points? Like, would you put endocrine function here, metabolism
Mm-hmm.
of sugar, like how the energy is actually produced in the body? What are some of the other bullet points that you will say, okay, if it comes to causes, and I will tell you where I'm going with this question.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to causes, it's like, okay, which, maybe it's 4, 5, 6, 7 common causes. I would like to, for our viewers and listeners, I would like to list the bullet points
Mm-hmm.
here. So gut slash digestion,
Yeah,
sleep.
absolutely gut.
Mhm.
Um, Absolutely looking at your
Adrenals,
adrenals for sure. I mean, just the whole HPATG axis. So looking at hormones, looking at your thyroid, right? That's extremely important to make sure that that's functioning correctly. Sometimes, you know, thyroid hypothyroidism is not really diagnosed as much as in this country as it should be. And that in itself can be causing the fatigue. So that's definitely something that needs to be checked, right? Looking at nutrient insufficiencies where we're just, or an imbalance in our nutrients. And then, of course, cellular metabolism and making sure that those, our cells are working the way they should and producing the energy. And that in of itself has, a whole bunch of other reasons why that might be happening.
hmm
But when we're looking even as stress, I know that's something that you mentioned. A lot of times, I know for me, before I really dived more into functional medicine, someone tells you stress, and you're thinking, "Oh, I'm stressed out." It's a mental stress, is what we're thinking, right? But we're not thinking about the physiological stress that we're putting on our body. So it's not just the mental
Elaborate,
stress
elaborate on the
of
physiology.
managing.
Mhm.
So, okay, I need to manage my stress. I have situations in my life that I don't know how to manage, and maybe I have some anxiety or too many things I don't know how to juggle, overwhelm, things like that, that are more of a mental, emotional stress. But then the physiological stress is, is there sugar imbalances? Are we not regulating sugar properly in our body? Is there insulin resistance? Um, is there an autoimmune condition? where your body is constantly in a fight or flight. These are more physiological stressors that are creating more impact,
Wow.
in your
So
body that you don't really realize is happening.
this is
Because we
good
all,
to have this kind of perspective because you mentioned, mental stress. A lot of people think about it. Of course, I have problems, I have these, thoughts here and challenges in life. A lot of people talk about physical stress, where to my surprise, and I didn't know this until I knew this, even intense physical exercise is giving additional stress. So some people want to de-stress by having a workout, but if somebody is at a stage where maybe that immune condition is out of control and they're just not ready to work out intensely, putting too much stress, physical stress, that's a problem as well. So for me, that was
right.
a discovery to say, okay, that makes sense, but I just never thought about it as an individual. I'm like, wow, interesting, right? You talk about people talk about chemical stress because we have different chemicals, environment, toxins, right? So that is another thing. You also mentioned physiological stress, right? What happens within our body and all these different processes. So I just want our viewers and listeners to know that sometimes it's so complex that under one,
Mhm.
label, stress, we have so many different things. And that's where I think it's really important to understand at least the basics of this, because why do we have healthcare providers? They should be explaining this stuff to us, but sometimes they don't. Sometimes they don't because they don't look so comprehensively. Sometimes they don't know because they don't have time. And sometimes they don't know because simply there are things that are their own blind spots. And that's
Mhm.
where I think promoting integrative healthcare approach, where we have multiple providers, where we have a health coach role as well, somebody who is going to help the patient ask a proper question to a provider. Now it empowers me on a patient side. Say, okay, now I know which questions I should be asking my doctor
Mhm.
and which questions my doctor should be asking me as well, right? Let's talk about that meeting because I think that
Mhm.
meeting is important. People are going to look at this video, they're going to watch it, they're going to listen to it, and they will say, okay, I have chronic fatigue. That seems to be serious, and it is serious. So why would I go to a health coach
Mhm.
versus going to my primary care physician? They should know, they should tell me. So what I would like to tell people is that there is no competition here between the two roles, but there is more of a synergy happening. And I want people to understand what I now know is that functional health coach, what is the role of the functional health coach, and also give some examples, just maybe one or two questions that you would recommend the patient asks the provider to really see if they're looking for the cause versus just treating the symptom with a medication.
As far as the role as a health coach, I see myself as, like you said, that intermediary, that person that can really, more of a guide. I am guiding you, I am educating you as far as what I see in the overall picture and what I would recommend if you see your doctor. This is definitely the questions that I would ask. If you have some chronic fatigue, you want to make sure you're getting the right labs done. So
Okay.
what are those labs, right? We want to
Yeah,
make
what are,
sure
can you
you get it.
can you tell some of
Absolutely.
them?
I would absolutely recommend a full iron panel, a full thyroid panel for sure, with antibodies. That's very important. Um, they're going to perform regular CBCs, CMPs. I would go a little even make sure vitamin D is done. We know a lot about vitamin D, but still not everyone is testing for vitamin D, and that's really important. Even vitamin B, they're more open now to being able to actually doing those type of labs. Even something like an MMA, which is an intracellular B12 level. Um, and that is actually now more common that doctors are okay with checking for those labs and insurance is paying for it. So I would definitely push a little bit more to making sure that these get done. And I a lot of times it's me looking and seeing where are the gaps in their lab work. And, maybe we need to definitely push and make sure that these iron panels get completely done. And, I would speak to your doctor about that for sure. Help them to advocate for themselves. That's what I do as a health coach as well, and because you have to be your best advocate. You have to be the only one that can go, I can definitely, I'm okay with writing a letter to a doctor and asking, hey, I have a mutual client that I would like to, recommend certain labs for you and see if something like this can be checked based on this history. I am not uncomfortable at all doing that, but it's still a matter of you advocating for yourself and knowing, like you said. So just basically looking at the whole entire picture, I can definitely help guide where the focus needs to be when you see your doctor, for sure.
So important.
Yeah.
And I want everybody to pay attention. How cool is this that you can have somebody to be empowering you in the conversation
Mhm.
that you will have with your doctor? Because look, you have a short window of opportunity. You have how many minutes with your doctor? Let's be honest. 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. I don't know, but it's a short window of opportunity, tons of questions. Plus, they're saying things to you, they're asking you their own questions. So, knowing what questions to ask them is important. Knowing which labs to ask for is important. And I will tell you from my experience, I I had some challenges on that communication because I was asking for a specific type of lab work that I wanted to be included, and then the answer, and I would like you to maybe give people
Mhm.
a hint of how to get that conversation successfully going, because the answer that I got is like, you don't need that, right?
Mhm.
So what I said is like, okay, well, let me ask you a question, because what I was told is that this helps me determine if that factor is accurate. And because I have that symptom in the past, which you can see in my chart, I think it would be good for us to know just to make sure. And they say, you know what, you're right, let's do it.
Mhm. Boom.
I wanted to ask you because when you talk about empowering people, I think we need to empower with some questions and also the rational. For example, let's say I go to my medical doctor and I say I would like to have full iron panel. I would like to have, the thyroid panel, including antibodies and this and that. Um, and then they say, you don't really need that.
Mhm.
What do you say?
Well, I laugh because that's exactly what happens. Exactly
Okay.
what you just said is exactly what happens. And again, having that education and having the information as to why it's important and why you need to get this done, once you question that and once you basically push for that and let them know, hey, I am fully understanding what I'm looking at here, and this is what I feel I need. At that point, the doctor will sort of be like, I want to make my patient happy. Okay, let's go ahead and run it then. If it's going to make you feel better, we'll go ahead and run that. And that's what I've seen happen as well. But there has to be that education piece where you need to understand why it's important that you get this checked
Mm-hmm.
and understand that. And once you have that information, it's really hard for them to tell you no.
Yeah. And it's,
And if they do, then it's still pushing and saying, I understand that, but this is something I need to get done and I want to have it done
one
because
thing
there's
that I
going to be
wanted.
pushback.
Yes, and thank you. One thing that I wanted to share here, which helps me in so many different disciplines of life and different situations. It's not only for this situation, but I think it's relevant here as well, is that the number one reason why people don't get what they want is because they don't ask.
Mm-hmm.
So simple. So sometimes, yes, you can get a no, but if you don't ask and you're about to not get it, if you don't ask, you're not going to get it. If you ask, you might get it. If you ask intentionally, if you ask with the knowledge, if you ask
Mm-hmm.
empowered with the reasons why you would like X, Y, and Z, even if the reason is like, I saw a video that one health coach said, I need that, full iron panel to make me feel good, Dr. X, could you please give me that full
Yeah,
iron panel so I
yeah,
have a good feeling that we did a complete lab work? A lot of them will maybe say no, but I
right.
think a lot of them will also smile, say, you know what,
Yeah.
patient
Okay.
X, I'm gonna do it for you, right? So I think
Absolutely.
this is really, really cool. And what you said is
Yeah.
so important because
Yeah.
it gives people an idea of what to ask the doctor. Let's reverse it right now because I promised something to the people in the intro. I want to keep my promise. I would like us to also look at the evaluation that we are getting by our doctor. What questions should they be asking us if we present with chronic fatigue?
Mhm. It's really important that you feel heard. I think that's really important that you are talking to them and they are fully in your presence and in attention. There have been so many, that's definitely something to watch out for. I have been myself where I've explained to them my issues with my fatigue and they're typing away or they're thinking about something else. They're not really focusing on you and what your concerns are. They already know what they already are on a mission. They're focused somewhere else, and that they're just letting you speak, right? So it's really important that you feel heard. That I really want to make sure is very clear here. If you don't feel heard, then it may be time to try to find another practitioner that will hear you, right? You want to make sure that they're asking you, what's going on? Is there any changes that have happened in your life? When did this start? Right? How long have you been feeling like this? What is your diet like? And I would love for them to be able to ask, you know, let's make sure we're dotting all our I's, crossing all our T's, and making sure that we're checking everything. And what support do you need? That's what I would love to hear, right? What
I've
support
never
do
had
you
a,
need?
I've never had a situation with a traditional medical
Mm,
appointment that a doctor would ask me what support do you need or what support do you feel you need. I think
mm-hmm,
that's a fantastic question. And if we do have providers watching this, pay attention to the list of these questions because maybe you can use them in your own evaluation process and in your own consultations. I think this is very important because that is also that's linking back to the beginning of what you said. It's like you want to make sure that the patient is feeling heard,
mm-hmm.
that there is communication. So if I'm asking the patient, what do you feel is the support that we can provide to you? I think it's so powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. Because there is support. And that's where, you know, diving a little deeper into why they might be feeling this way, right? Why are you struggling with the fatigue? They may need support. Maybe they're not sleeping properly. Maybe, okay, let's check for sleep apnea. Just making sure that the questions are being asked and that they're digging a little deeper to the whys with the question. When I struggled with hives for 7 years and not once over with specialists, dermatologists, rheumatologists, every internal medicine doctor that I heard was great that I went to. Not one asked, why did you start getting these? When did you start getting this? How long have you been having this?
That's
You have
surprising.
hives, you get the tests, everything is normal. We don't know what it is. Here's a Medrol dose pack, Claritin, Zantac. I
Mhm.
mean, I was on 3 different antihistamines and steroid packs. And we don't know what it is. It could be idiopathic until I finally went to a functional medicine doctor. And she was like, when did this start? Oh, when you started to work at this location. Maybe it's something in this location. Let's dig deeper. She's the only one that asked why, when, how long. I mean, it's incredible. And it just blew my mind that we're not asking really the why. We're going through textbook protocols. That's what we're doing. Patient presents with this, X, Y, and Z. These are the tests that we're doing. Based on those tests, this is what the results are. And there's so much more there that I think there needs to be, there's this bridge, right? Between X, like you said, between here and here, there's this gap between everything being normal and you still feeling terrible, but you're still not diagnosable because it's not coming up on diagnostic lab testing. What's missing?
And even
What's
if you
here?
are diagnosable, so what? It's okay.
Right,
I now earned that
right,
label, right? To be
right,
labeled with
great.
I still
Mm-hmm.
need the answers, right? I would like
Right.
to add one more thing to empower people on the patient side because sometimes, I feel like with the doctors networking group, we are talking to two different audiences, and yet at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, sometimes it's the same person. Because I'm thinking on the
Mm-hmm.
provider side, what do we need to provide through all the clinics that we have to our patients? And at the same time, as I come in as a patient or with my wife as a patient,
Mm-hmm.
I'm wearing that other hat, so I do understand both perspectives. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I think it's important to know that we do have a lot of power as a patient
Mm-hmm.
to ask certain questions if they're not asked of you, right?
Right.
So if
Right.
the doctor is not asking you, okay, why, or telling you
Mm-hmm.
why, what I would like to empower you watching or listening is you can. You can ask the
Mm-hmm.
same question. You can ask why. So well, what I see here on the lab is your B12 is high.
Right. Why?
Why is that? And
Yeah,
then, okay, and your cholesterol is high, but the
yeah,
ratio seems to be this and this. Um, can you tell me why could that happen, right? We don't have
yeah.
to, because how we ask the question is going to be a whole lot of difference. We want to be
Hmm.
respectful, we want to get the information, and we don't want to be in conflict with the medical provider because they're there to help us with the best
Hmm.
intentions. 90+%
Yeah,
of doctors
100%.
are fantastic. It's just sometimes because it's out of the typical standard of care, that kind of question can give you the answer that will lead to the solution. And guess what? They are not living with that chronic fatigue or a condition that you came with. You are. So it's on
Hmm.
you to make sure that you get the answers because they will have another patient and they go about their day. At the
Yeah,
same time, one simple question why can be able to help you address it.
yeah.
So I think this is mega, mega powerful. And
And and if I can add too, um, I've seen this countless times again also where, you are going to the doctor for a specific symptom, in what we're talking about, let's say chronic fatigue, or anything else. And sometimes they'll focus on one lab marker or something flags, so they're focusing on that. But there's another marker that's also flagging, or maybe just really on that cusp of that range, right? And it's not really being looked at. It's not being really, that for them is not a focus. They're not really thinking about that because they're focusing on this other issue. And I've seen many times where, clients don't know that certain markers are off because they were never told. And they themselves haven't really looked at their lab work. So as part of that advocating for yourself, right? And learning and making sure that, you learn as much about what's happening to you before you go to the doctor as well, is looking at those lab results, really trying to understand it yourself. And if something is not right that wasn't explained to you, ask. That is really important because I've seen that time and time again. And a lot of times it's important.
what do you think
It's
about
a big aha.
retesting? I'm really curious because now I'm thinking about something. So we have a certain amount of blood in our body. That blood circulates, right?
Mm-hmm.
That blood is going to be slightly or a lot different now and another unit of
Mm-hmm.
time, right? So sometimes there is going to be the whole treatment protocol because of a blood market in a
Mm-hmm.
given unit of time because of something that maybe we ate yesterday or did yesterday
Mm-hmm.
or the same day, right? So, what
Right.
are your thoughts about asking the provider to retest certain things where, maybe it's just like, okay, I see this marker, here's the pill, go home. What,
Mm-hmm.
at which point, because, we don't want to be also difficult patients or we don't want to do something that is unnecessary. I'm literally curious what your
Yeah.
thoughts on retestings are.
That's where I ask questions as well, because that's also very important. We can get into a whole, like, how to properly test, get your lab work done, right? Making sure you're 12 hours fasted, making sure you're drinking sufficient water, because if you're dehydrated, that could impact so many markers in your lab work. And I want to really point out here that lab work is a point in time. Any test that you get done is a point in that time, and it can be different if you retest a few days later, right? It's just a moment in time. So that's where it's really important to assess the symptoms that the patient is experiencing and being able to look at the symptoms and look at what you're looking at lab work and say, that doesn't jive. That doesn't jive for me. This doesn't make sense to me. Or if you're looking at a history of lab work where you're saying, well, why is it that now suddenly your cholesterol is, 300, but just 3 months ago it was 180? Like, what happened? Right,
Hmm.
here's the question: what happened? That happened with a client once, and it was because she was hospitalized for that time period, and she was eating these horrible foods that they were bringing. So she was really controlled on her diet and really being healthy, and then she was in the hospital and everything got checked. So really asking the question, right? What happened in this time period? Or I'd only have one lab work, but I'm looking at the symptoms and what's assessing. Um, does it seem appropriate for you to get this redone? Because maybe there's some kind of lab work issue. And I have seen that happen when you see these drastic changes, that you have a little bit, you have some questions on it. And that's what I would look at. But that's another thing, that it's a matter of understanding and being able to look at the whole person and if what you're looking at makes sense. And I don't agree in the idea of creating protocols um, and set prescriptions, let's say, these doctors should just be writing prescriptions based on this one lab. And to be honest, many don't, they don't prescribe cholesterol medication until, several months down the line, if you retest over and over and it's still elevated and there's no change. So that, I will say many doctors will not do that. But even as a functional health coach, I don't recommend looking at this at one point and this is definitely what you have. No, no, no. You look at your symptoms. This is what you're experiencing. This is what you're feeling. I'm going to use this lab work to help me corroborate what I'm feeling here and looking at within your symptoms. Does this make sense? Does it not make sense? I hope that
You know,
helps.
someone said something about chronic disease that I found very interesting. Is logical, but I think not a lot of people think this way. So if we have a chronic disease, it means that if it's chronic, it means it took a long time to develop to a certain state, right? And now we go to a doctor, to a facility, or we have a team of doctors helping us, which is what I definitely am feeling much more comfortable with, because now you have all these people teaming up for your success. So you have a team of providers there, and it comes to expectations, right? So if our expectation is that something that took a long time to develop is going to be treated with one pill that is going to just magically take all the symptoms away, take the cause away, it's 99% impossible, right? So I think that we need to also have realistic expectations to also understand that on the provider side, sometimes they need to peel the onion layer by layer. They need to go back in time, and there's a chronic treatment or long-term treatment to reverse that chronic disease if it's only possible. And I just want everybody watching and listening to also have realistic expectations
Mhm.
and a certain level of perseverance when it comes to health, which we are having some ups and downs with health with my wife, as I shared before.
Mhm.
And if we didn't have the level of perseverance, what is the alternative? Really, what is the alternative? It's like, okay, if there's nothing that is a quick fix, if we didn't
Mhm.
allow the doctors and the team of people to peel the onion, what is the alternative? It's like just stop the process and just give up? No,
Mhm.
I refuse to do that on our family side. So I just wanted to share with
Yeah.
people to have realistic expectations, because it will help you watching or listening have some good level of satisfaction when it comes to progress. And
Mhm.
because we are used to instant gratification from Instagram, Facebook, and all these things that happen instantly, we also expect instant results when it comes to chronic fatigue, chronic health conditions. It's good to give people enough time. At the same time, I will give you a tough one right now, Jacqui.
Oh
Okay?
boy.
That's a tough one.
Okay.
Ready. Let me know if
Ready.
you're ready.
I'm ready.
Sure.
Maybe?
All right. That's a tough
Okay.
one.
Okay.
I would like to ask you about hacks that will allow people who, while they're peeling the onion, right, and they're trying to reverse chronic disease, chronic fatigue, and they're trying to get to the bottom of this, and that will take time, right? I would like to know about the hacks that work tomorrow.
Mm.
I would like to know about the hacks. What can I do while I'm doing this? I'm not saying don't do it, but it's
Mhm.
like if I'm looking for a shortcut, a biohack to give me more
Mm.
energy tomorrow, what would you say could work? What can they possibly try?
Okay, that is a tough one.
I
As I don't
promise you it
know
would be
if
a tough one.
I don't think there's anything that's going to be overnight. But from my experience, changing your diet is the biggest thing you can do. That will be the fastest. So if you cut out the gluten, you cut out grains, you cut out the dairy, almost like an elimination diet, it helps to remove all this noise that we're experiencing because there's so much that we don't know what's affecting us and what's not. What's causing this? Why am I tired? Why am I not tired? I'm not sleeping. Maybe it's what I'm eating. Maybe there's noise. There's all this noise. And by doing that and really replacing those with more vegetables, right? Complex carbs, proteins, healthy proteins, more like a paleo whole 30 type of, you know, program. You eliminate that noise and suddenly it allows you to see clearer what's affecting you. And rather quickly, I would say within 2 or 3 weeks, you start seeing a quick change in your energy levels.
What if I want one day?
Hmm.
From today to tomorrow. I have a
Ah,
seminar, I have a presentation tomorrow.
I
And
don't have an answer for you on that one.
so no magic pill. No,
I
no,
don't
no.
know. I
What is the one
no,
cheat that
not
could work, but it
not
doesn't
that,
hurt me?
not a legal one. I don't know. I don't have one.
Okay, okay. I was hoping
I
there
don't
is
have one.
something that can be a
I
lifeline.
personally don't have one, but I think it's really important when you start this journey to eliminate that noise and start getting more clarity as to how your body is responding to things and how you're reacting. That's really so important. And once you eliminate so much, all of a sudden, when you try it again, you're like, I didn't realize how bad that made me feel, or how tired, or how sluggish. Um, but literally, I've seen a change in energy within 2, 3 weeks, where suddenly they're not as tired anymore. They're sleeping better. You just eliminating this inflammation and awareness to you, which is the most important part, I think, and what I help people with is creating that awareness of what your body responds to in a good way as opposed to a negative way, right? Because that's the only way for long-term progress. That's the only way to do it.
You
You
know,
have to.
I'm listening to you, and at the same time, I also feel a certain level of passion about this, right? So it's not
Mm-hmm.
just words, not just these bullet points that we talk about, not just the lab work, analyzing equations, strategies, ratios, and all the things that are important. There's also a certain level of passion that is behind this person. Tell us
Mm-hmm.
where that passion is coming from.
Oh gosh, I think it started with, I am I'm a practicing pharmacist, and I have been one for 28 years. And my passion started with functional medicine, with my own journey, my 7 years of chronic hives, and not being able to get any resolution on that. Being told that it was because I was probably depressed. It was very defeating and scary, because the fear for me was, is this how it's going to be for the rest of my life? I didn't even think about the implications of this chronic inflammatory response in my body long term. My concern was, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be able to hug anybody because my face breaks out in welts. I'm not going to be comfortable. I can't sleep well because I'm itchy all the time. Like, what is this going to be, how it's going to be? And am I going to get worse? And that's where it started. And being able to go from this frustration that I went through for 7 years to, in such a short time period, complete resolution. It's been 21 years and not one welt on my body after 21 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And then having to go back into pharmacy, knowing there's more that we're doing. And as the years have gone on, it's just been more pill pushing and just one prescription after another. And, you're going to take this, and you need to take this to offset the side effects for this, and then take that. And no one stops to even ask, Mike, is it possible that this medication is causing a side effect? That's the frustrating part for me as a pharmacist. And then when you ask, do you think it could be the medication? They tell you no, when it's clearly a side effect of the medication. So
Wow.
there's so much of that. And it's, from seeing it with my parents, and, over prescribing, and then just, no, 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 it's never the medication. Yeah, you know what? It could be the medication, right? We're giving too much. We're not being conservative enough. And we're just buying into this, we need to give a prescription. And, in all honesty, my customers and patients that were coming in, if they don't get a prescription, they're not very happy either. So we also need to change that mindset that, we need to ourselves look a little deeper and not just expect a pill to cure everything and fix it. And the medications are wonderful, and sometimes they are life-saving, right? Because sometimes they are necessary, but they're not the cure. And you need to get the resolution, get the relief that you need, and then say, okay, what do I need to do? Because this is not what I need to be on for the rest of my life. This may stop working, right? Because that happens. Or what do I need to do to prevent myself from getting onto that medication? And that's, we're missing a lot of that. We're just prescribing left and right, and people aren't getting better. There's so many people in pain. There's so much pain. There's so much fatigue. There's so much frustration. And it's like an onslaught. It's constantly coming at you. Like, if I'm in the pharmacy, it's constant. People are really struggling. And just having simple conversations with them of, you're taking a proton pump inhibitor. Maybe we shouldn't be taking this for 3 or 4 years. This
Yes.
is really meant for short term. Why are you having heartburn? Is
Wow.
it something that you're eating? Is it something that you're sensitive to? I mean, this is even off the fatigue, but okay, so I've been on proton pump inhibitors now for 3 years. Might that be affecting your microbiome? Might that be affecting your digestive capability? Now we're not getting the nutrients. Guess what? Now we're tired. Now we're having memory loss due to the medications. So there's so many questions to ask, right? And it was just frustrating for me, just knowing what I know and seeing how much worse it's getting. And even from the pharmacy perspective, it's no longer a caring about patients, it's pumping prescriptions out. And that for me is what lights me up, knowing that I don't have to be on that end anymore. I can be on this side, really helping people and guiding them through all these ups and downs, because there's so many challenges in between where you start and where you end. Um, and seeing that difference and knowing that I am making a difference for sure
You're
in this way.
definitely
Because
making.
the other way, the only thing I'm doing is just listening to them, and making sure they take their medications. That's really the only thing I'm doing on this side, which is not what it should be. I think pharmacists need to be playing a much larger role. Health coaches, pharmacists, we all need to be integrated, right? We all need to be together to work together for this one patient to make sure they're getting the best that they can get.
Absolutely. So
Yeah,
from frustration to
yeah,
passion. Jacqui,
absolutely.
so as a doctors networking group, as an integrative healthcare community, we have amazing people watching this, healthcare providers, individuals. How can we support you?
I think the best way to support me or any other health coach is to be open to the idea of the importance of a health coach to your patient or your clients. Because again, there is this, there's a lot of internal battle when you're in the healing process, right? It's not just a matter of this is the protocol that we're going to do, or this is what we think is going to get you to healing. But between starting there and getting to resolution, there's a lot of resistance and a lot of changes and a lot of life challenges that come along the way. And I think that it's so important to have a health coach as part of your team to be able to help your client or patient with throughout those challenges that you don't have time to do yourself, so
Yeah,
that we can ensure the patient actually gets to where we want them to be.
yeah. I
They
love
need
what
that, they need that hand, they need that guide for
I
sure.
love that. And your approach, your passion is also making people at ease that they have additional layer of support in this journey, because health is journey. It's just like success. We keep chasing it and it tries to exit,
Yeah,
escape, and then we grab it and then we
yeah,
think we got it and then it escapes again. So
yeah.
as we are going through these ups and downs, I think having somebody with us as a guide is a necessary step, in my opinion. If you're watching this and you're a healthcare provider, consider teaming up with Jacqui. And you can work remotely, right, Jacqui?
Yeah, I'm virtual. That can work with anyone.
Well, you're real. You're just
Yeah.
working remotely. You're definitely real. And by the way, to prove that, we actually met recently in Baltimore. Yes, so she's real. Also, if you're watching this as a patient, potential client, or a patient of one of the offices that we have here, keep in mind having a health coach, even scheduling a consultation, a meeting, a conversation to just know what questions to ask to your doctor. I think it would be very valuable for you. Jacqui, where can people find you?
You can find me on www.jacquionoz.com. That's where you can find me. That's my website, jacquionoz.com. And you can absolutely, find me through there. And all my social media links are also on that site.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Jacqui, it was a pleasure. And I thank
Thank you.
you. And I thank you for your time watching or listening. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe because we have many amazing people here. And you can see the energy is great. We are here to support you in treating your patients. We are here to support you with referrals, clinical support, all kinds of resources. And we believe in the power of integrative medicine. So, Jacqui, once again, thank you so much. Thank you for
Thank you.
watching or listening. Till next time. Thanks.